So you're Blues captain Ryan O'Reilly, and you want a haircut that's as custom as your stick curve. At Great Clips, we save your haircut details in clip notes, so you get your signature look every time. We got you, and you got this. Great Clips, official hair salon of the NHL.
Accuracy and me don't get along, believe me. The bananas. It's not a potassium thing. I'm just a big fan. Hey, if my source said to me they're going to Czechoslovakia this week, how am I to blame? I'm passing the information.
Here he is, one half of Donnie and Dolly, the team, weekdays on Czech television from 10 to 12. Our Friday regular Canucks insider, Mr. Rick Dhaliwal. How you doing, fella?
How you doing, gentlemen? Couldn't be better.
Is that because Blake's not here?
Big part of it. I feel good. It's just so nice to go into an interview where, somebody doesn't show you up or, act like you're, above them or below them. It's going to be nice. Although Patterson better not rip me like Price does. But Jeff's a real nice guy. I've known Jeff many years. He would never do that. He would never do that to me.
I got your back, Dolly. I got you.
Thank you.
He did his Donnie and Dolly hit from our studio, from the Go Sports studio here this week. We were able to watch it all go down.
We love our hits with J-Pat.
As we love our hits with you, Ricky. Okay, where's all this front office stuff coming from, and why Dale Tallon?
Well, the news broke, obviously, Matt, during the show. But what I can tell you about Dale Tallon is before they hired Jim Rutherford, his name was bantied about. It was out there. I was told the Canucks did talk to Tallon before they hired Jim, and I was told the NHL at the time wasn't really liking it or going to pass it or give permission to move ahead. So obviously now that the Canucks have brought him on as a senior advisor and pro scout, and obviously the NHL has given their thumbs up. But I do know for a fact that the Canucks were talking to Dale before Jim came on board.
And I think we both back in the fall or late fall, I guess, heard, maybe not quite yet for Tallon or not quite in such a front-facing role. Yeah. But he's been rumored here for so many years, Rick. Do you know whether this is a Francesco Aquilini hire or just somebody that Francesco and ownership had liked over the years that happened to jive with Alvin and Rutherford, who were rumored to be hiring Dale after he was cleared in that investigation a couple years back?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when you hire president, guess who does the interview? And the owner does, right? So maybe it is the owner in this case who's had a lot of respect for Dale over the years. I don't know if there's a connection between the two. But you know what? This is also, Jim Rutherford's calling the shots now. And obviously Jim and Dale, as Thomas Drance told us on the show today, that Jim Rutherford and Dale have a great relationship as well, So they go back many, many years together. And, hey, look, the NHL would have had to approve this because obviously we know that Dale, got in some hot water. John Shannon told us as well that Dale Tallon was on his show about a month ago or 5-6 weeks ago, and he talked about the incident and what happened and all that stuff, but he was very open about it. But hey, look, it looks like Dale Tallon's been approved by the league. He's now a member of the Vancouver Canucks, senior advisor and pro scout. And look, I'm going to give credit here to the owner of this team, who's probably got one of the biggest front offices in the National Hockey League now. You go back to Benning, Weisbrod, and really very skimpy after that. There was criticism. Jim actually, came out and talked about, the rumors that the Canucks have the skimpiest front office in the National Hockey League. And he keeps adding people to the front office at a pretty good clip here since Rutherford and Alvin got here. But here's the other thing, guys. As far as I know, Travis Green, Baumgartner, Benning, Weisbrod, Gear, scouts were let go 5 6 weeks ago. There's some presidents, I think, that are still being paid that are not. He's paying a lot of people to work for the Vancouver Canucks that are not working for the Vancouver Canucks, and he's still adding people to the front office. So that's very interesting to me.
And as we talked about earlier, very well, Tallon could have been someone that ownership and management all agreed on. And as we also discussed earlier, this is where you can spend outside of the salary cap as a big, rich hockey market. and club to see if you can get competitive advantages. So I'm with you. I commend Canuck Sports Entertainment for pouring the sort of money they are into the front office here, even if you don't necessarily agree with each and every name and each and every hire.
And Matt, let me throw this in too. All these owners are coming out of COVID, right? They're coming out of a COVID economy, a COVID this, COVID that. When we talked to Ron Toigo, the owner of the Vancouver Giants, a few weeks ago, and he had mentioned he lost well over $1 million last year and $1 million the year before when COVID started causing so many issues. So a lot of these owners, I know you're going to say they're not millionaires now, Matt. They're billionaires, and I get that. But we are coming out of a COVID where a lot of owners lost a lot of money. But here we are. He's adding to the front office. He talked about that, and he's doing it.
Another name to come up today, Ryan Johnson. Since Rutherford and Alvin came on board, and they've had nothing but high praise for Ryan Johnson. He's universally regarded in the hockey world. Matt and I agree, though, and we touched on this earlier in the program, we both start to feel like this is a big year for Abbotsford. Last year was the first year, the novelty effect. They brought in a bunch of veterans. Ricky, I think 7 of the 8 highest scoring players from last year's Abbotsford team are unrestricted free agents. Like, they can shop themselves here. Are you hearing what the plan is for year 2 in Abbotsford in terms of stocking the system there? And I would just think that there is a little bit more pressure. Obviously, a disappointing end of the season for Abbotsford with the brief playoff appearance that lasted all of 2 games. But are they going to spend down on the farm again this year?
Yes, they are. Jim Rutherford told me actually just 2 to 3 weeks ago that there will be no cost spared in making sure that Abbotsford is a very highly competitive team. They are talking to Sheldon Dries right now. They're trying to bring him back. He led Abbotsford with 35 goals, I believe. Sheldon Rempel's an RFA. That's a no-brainer. I mean, the kid, former Nanaimo Clipper, come on, man. He had a great year. He was so good. Nick Patan's going to be the one. There was a rumor a couple of weeks ago that the Russian teams were looking at Patan, and that is accurate. The Russians were after him, Russian teams in the KHL, but there was no interest from Nick Patan and his agent Kevin Epp to go to Russia at that time. So Nick Patan's name. Do they go after him? Sheldon Dries, I know they want him back. Justin Bailey, when he's healthy, Justin Bailey is a very, 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 very good American Hockey League player. Hey, look, they need Abbotsford. I think everybody was a little bit disappointed the last weekend in Manitoba. They kind of blew it to get home ice in the first round. Then they get home ice and they get, they lost in Bakersfield or in California. So it was disappointing. I agree with you, but I do believe in my heart that Ryan Johnson's going to have the funds. He's going to have everything in his arsenal to make sure that Abbotsford is competitive again next year.
I saw Kyprios this morning reporting that Jim Rutherford's made it clear to other general managers around the National Hockey League that he is open to offers on JT Miller. I mean, here we go again with JT Miller talk, but we're getting close. I mean, 2 weeks from the draft, and obviously some massive organizational decisions have to be made here on this player.
And so the report was the Canucks have made teams aware they're listening to offers on JT Miller. And I got to the Miller camp this morning, and I was told that the Miller camp is not surprised by these reports that the Canucks are listening on Miller. In fact, another source told me that the Canucks have been listening to teams about Miller since February.
Yeah.
And, that's going back. That's not last month or the month before. That's a few months away. Hey, look. This obviously tells us, I mean, the two sides are far apart in terms of money. And I always thought that Mika Zibanejad at 8.5, I had heard was a comparable, just things that you hear. So, maybe the Canucks don't want to go to 8.5 or 9 or 9.5 or whatever it is. Maybe they want something in the high 6s, low 7s, or even go high 7s. But it clearly there looks like it sounds like that they're not close. They seem to be far apart. So now you're hearing the rumors, and so the Miller camp not surprised that these reports are out there that the Canucks are listening on JT.
Yeah, I was going to say he's been available for months and months here. I mean, when they got in there, they did shop the players around and see what the interest was in the NHL. Well, I didn't think that was much of a scoop from Kyprios. I just think it's intensifying, right? As Jeff says, as we get closer to the playoffs or the draft.
The interesting thing is that the Miller camp is not surprised, and because there was a time, Matt, Look, let's go back to the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
We heard a million reports that Miller, Boeser, and Garland were going to be gone. Did any of them go? No. But what the Canucks did at that time was talk to a lot of teams about Miller. And maybe now it's been a few more months and they got a better idea of what kind of haul this guy could bring back. And he's going to bring back a haul. Let's be honest, 99 points. If he leaves, that is a massive hole in the Vancouver Canucks roster. 99 points, power play, penalty killing, overtime, a shootout. This guy did it all. He was the engine that made them go. And if it does end up being, let's be honest, guys, if he does end up being gone, you are going to get young players in return for JT Miller. But here's if this happens, and I'm just spitballing and throwing this out there, that's also going to probably free up some cap space if you do it at this draft. It could be done in the summer. Maybe this is all going to come down to when are you getting the best JT Miller offer? Is it at the deadline? Is it in August? Is it in September? Is it at the next deadline? When are they getting the best offer? And the Vancouver Canucks will be the judge of that. But if they ever do get rid of him at the deadline this year, well, guess what starts after? The draft. Guess what starts after the draft 6 days later? NHL free agency, and they're going to have a little bit more cap room to go with. Somebody told me that the Canucks had Kadri on their list weeks ago, and I just laughed at the guy. And I go, "Are you kidding? Where do you see them with a room to get Kadri?" Well.
Yeah.
Now we're hearing, JT Miller, they're listening, and that would free up some space. But it's just stuff you hear. I'm not saying Kadri's coming here. I'm not saying the Canucks are going to make him an offer. But that was a name that I had heard, and I kind of laughed at the guy at the time. But you know what? Now that you're hearing all this Miller stuff, maybe if it could open up some cap room.
Earlier in the week, we were talking about the signing of Andrei Kuzmenko and who he might make most expendable. What's your sense, Rick, with Kuzmenko in the fold? Is one of these wingers on their way out, or is it not going to affect matters with Boeser, Garland, Pearson, and whomever else they might be looking at?
Yeah, it's so hard to say right now, Kuzmenko, who it affects. Guys, they got all summer to reshape this roster. They could do it at the draft. They could do it through free agency. What's the use of talking about Kuzmenko and his line mates now when it actually in 3 or 4 weeks there might be 3-4 new guys here, And at training camp, this might be a whole different looking roster. I will say this about Kuzmenko. The biggest take I took out of Kuzmenko, it was how big of a win this was for the Canucks organization. And I'll tell you why. They beat 25 other teams out to get this guy. And whether this guy is a player or not, that's up to him. The onus is on the player to come here and deliver now. But for the Canucks organization to beat that many teams out, that was a big win for them for future signings as well. So next year when they go after the top European or they go after the top NCAA guy, and guys, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of work to do in this area of recruiting because the last few years there was a lot of damage done. A lot of agents they're not necessarily doing cartwheels about sending to a player to Vancouver just because of all the losing in the last few years. But when you sign Kuzmenko and he picks you over 25 other teams, that helps. That helps. And it should help this franchise. It was a big win for Rutherford, Alvin, and the Canucks to get Kuzmenko with so many teams involved. And I think it can only help going in the future in recruiting.
Rick, what about Boeser? I mean, I think the organization gave him and his family the distance that they required after the death of his father, and that made perfect sense and was the right play. But there is a looming deadline here. We know that they're not going to walk away from this guy, but seems like it's remarkably quiet on that front. Now, are the two sides talking about a contract, or is this just going to be a case of the player taking the qualifying offer?
No. So I'm going to give you the update on Boeser. There have been talks with the Boeser camp about an extension. Nothing is close as of right now. Discussions have been active with the Boeser camp for a while. They need to know if they can get they're going to try. They're going to try to do a 2-3 year deal with the agent who is Ben Hankinson. If they can't, look, I said this to you, Matt, last week. They have a built-in contract for Brock next year. It's 1 year at 7.5. That's the beauty of this whole thing. Is he isn't going to go into the summer, and he isn't going to go into a training camp. All the leverage is with the Boeser camp. They've got a contract for next year. Now the Vancouver Canucks have to either accept it or don't accept it. The leverage is with Boeser. He's got a 1 year deal at 7.5 for next year. It's done. Now the Canucks just have to execute whether they are going to qualify him or not. And every indication we get is that they would qualify him at 7-5. Jim has said they have the money to do so. But I just like there's going to be clarity on Brock in the next couple of weeks. And you know what? If worse gets to worse, if they can't do a 2 or 3 year deal, they'll have a 1 year deal at 7-5.
Can we all agree that Miller's more likely to go than Boeser at this stage?
Oh boy, the fact that the Miller camp is not surprised that I think that for the first time today is when I really got a feel that look, this just might happen. And then another source told me they've been listening on Miller since February. Yeah. Guys, that's not 2 weeks ago. That's a few months ago. So it does look. You got to be honest. I know we heard a million rumors at the trade deadline, and not saying he's going to move at the NHL draft, Matt and Jeff, because if the offer, they don't have to move unless they get the offer they absolutely love. Bottom line.
Ricky, wonderful stuff. Thank you for this, my friend. Enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up next Friday.
Just one request that Jeff is in the same spot next week.
Jeff will be in the same spot next week.
Keep wherever Price is in Hawaii or Mexico or whatever, keep him there for another 6-7 weeks.
It's Portugal, actually. He's in Portugal.
Oh, he's in Portugal?
He flew far away from you, Rick. He tried to get as far away from you as possible.
Hey, listen,
next Friday, by the way, is Canada Day. It's a holiday.
Oh, that's right. There won't be a show next Friday. So we'll catch up with you in a couple of Fridays from now. That's right.
Oh, this is good. No Price next week. No Price this week. I'm doing cartwheels. I might have to go and get a double shot of Crown tonight.
As only you can. Thanks, Rick.
Adios, amigos.
All right, Dolly.